What it do, golf fans? Welcome back to the Turn Dogs Golf Podcast. It's Liam. Alongside me is Jack. Jack, we had it was interesting. It was an interesting week in golf. That's a good way to describe it. Memorial didn't end up finishing, or it did end up kind of finishing the exact way we expected. Maybe is the best way to describe it. Scotty Scheffler pulled out the win. I'll drop the hammer if in case anybody didn't know. Thoughts on the week?
Well, I love the Memorial. I think it's about as take this with a grain of salt, but about as close to a major style event outside of the players, at least structure wise.
Yeah.
That is for a standard PGA Tour event, which you can't even call it a standard PGA Tour event anymore. Which, if you don't know my thoughts on it, it sucks. Um, but I think Jack Nicklaus summarized it really, really well in his press conference at the end, which I thought was really valuable. And he said, listen, Ben Griffin is a really nice player. Seb Straka is a really, really nice player. But then when you eliminate all these fields and all these really good guys from competition, like we talked about, it was like Scotty, Xander was in there, but there really wasn't like the next 10,
Yep.
is you're not really fighting that competition. And I think we've been saying that for a long time about a lot of these events. And this is no disrespect to Scotty. He can only do what he goes and enters a tournament. He can't control anything else. And good for
Yeah.
him. But I think it's an interesting perspective because it's just you have a star, but he's really hold on, everybody. In your car that's about to steer off the road, we have a star that's not a star. And what I
Yep.
mean by that is Scotty Scheffler is already classifying himself probably in the top 50 golfers to ever live. But unfortunately, he's not going in head-to-head battles with like Rory McIlroy or a Bryson DeChambeau, XYZ every single week. He's beating Nick Taylor by 4 and Russell Henley by 8. And granted, I know some of those guys were in the events, like take this again with an asterisk. But if you really look at the events that really solidified guys like Dustin Johnson winning majors, you saw the leaderboard he was stacked against. Even Patrick Reed had like all this stuff. And I feel
Yep.
like his stardom is lacking because of the leaderboard finish, which is also a testament to how good these guys are.
It's very interesting because these elevated events give the energy of older style golf where you know this more than I do. There wasn't full like the 148 or 44
No.
member fields that we have currently, or even in major events. So it's giving the same kind of energy as if somebody was to get that win in like the 50s or 60s when they were still having those like smaller fields. It's not worse golf by any means, but it does feel the need to sometimes put that kind of like asterisk in there where it's like they won 4 tournaments this year, but 3 of them didn't have a field size bigger than 70 guys.
Yeah, and I think I'll even, take it a step further for all the 25 handicappers that are currently calling OnStar because they just crashed on what we're saying. If you're a 25 handicapper, you know you can go out there and shoot 84 tomorrow and you can shoot 145. These guys are all the best caliber players in the world. And if you expand it from like 80, I don't remember what the field size was, like 88 or whatever it was, to
I think it was 72.
172 to 164, you're telling me that 3 guys aren't going to pop off? 2 guys, 1 guy that got in or got those spots? It's ridiculous. And I'm not disrespecting on Scotty. Scotty didn't go and write the laws and the filter so he could do it, but
Yeah.
I think it's interesting because I think a lot of people like myself, and I think a lot of people are looking at Scotty as the star, but he's not building a stardom, if that makes sense. He's not a superstar.
It's very interesting because the PGA right now is going through a lot of different changes. Look no further than the fact that they're changing the way the PGA the championship, not the BMW, but the actual
Stupid.
tour championship. They're changing the way that's works, so they're no longer doing the tiered system on that. There's going to be a lot of PGA specific changes over the next few years. Eventually, they might bring Live and PGA back together. We'll see how that works and if it ever ends up happening. But I have a gut feeling this is kind of just beginning as far as adjustments within PGA Tour as a whole over the next few years. But anyways, back to the Memorial. I don't know if you have any other highlights. We talked about Scotty winning. You mentioned Ben Griffin. You also mentioned Seb Straka. They both played well. Anybody else stand out for you, or do you want me to talk about notable guys who missed cut and stuff like
I
that?
would like to say one more thing about Scotty, and I'm not a Scotty hater. So whatever
Yeah.
Scotty, please, I'm not a Scotty hater. I love watching his game. Scotty Scheffler has had three successful title defenses in his last, in his career, right?
Yeah.
That is tremendous. He is in the last 30 years, two title defenses behind Phil Mickelson, arguable top 10 player in golf,
Yep.
and only 20 behind Tiger Woods. Last thing about Tiger Woods, because I will defend Tiger Woods to the death. Scotty Scheffler needs to win 55 of his next 107 events to tie Tiger Woods' record for the first 250 events. If that happens, I will get on my knees and beg every golf person in the world for forgiveness. No one can acclaim that title, but not a Scotty hater whatsoever. Scotty Scheffler is doing his thing and dominating. I just wish he'd fist pump a little more.
I'm gonna save that audio for the future, just in case, just so that way I can hold it against you. But no, yeah, I get it. I'd like a little bit more animation as well out of Scotty. I mean, the blank face sometimes just confuses me. Like,
Well, that's
show
what
some
happened
emotion.
with Brooks, right? Brooks won all these majors. He's fist pumping. He's awesome. He's this character. Then he wins the U.S. Open. And he goes, I don't really care. It's just another golf. I don't care. And everyone hated him. And then you have it come back when he's doing the fist pumps. Now Bryson's loved. He's showing more emotion than anybody. It's just we're in a weird cycle, right? I don't get it.
I like seeing golfers that show legitimate emotion. I know that's crazy to say, but that is why I am not, maybe not as high on like a Patrick Cantlay or Scotty as I
You'd be
am on
surprised.
like
Patrick Cantlay
Bryson.
shows a lot more emotion than I think people give him credit for.
It's just the like the mannerisms he does to with that emotion. Like it's very like subtle, and you almost have to like dig into it with Cantlay. I'd prefer if somebody was just more just upfront about it. All right, on to this again. Winner Scotty Scheffler. Notable guys to miss the cut. I mean, like Sahith Theegala, Daniel Berger, Brian Harmon, Aaron Rai. I guess. Yeah, nobody major. Basically, is the simple answer. Some of the best low price players we were all over. Bud Cauley, T39, Ryan Gerard, T23, Seb Straka, I think solo third, not T third. And then our misses, I was high on Aaron Rai, he missed the cut, and then I like Denny McCarthy, who finished 55th. So overall, not the best week, not the worst week, but with the
I
short
know I
field,
don't put my notes in the doc, but I did have Ricky Fowler pretty much everywhere, and he was 7K in drafting and finished seventh. So although I don't put my notes in, if you look at the notes on the doc, yeah, we crushed that one.
I forgot you actually put your notes in. I'm not used to you having notes in. This is like the second week ever, so it's not a major, I should say. So that's a new one for me. Speaking of notes, talk me through DraftKings, FanDuel. How'd your lineups look this week?
Yeah, we did fine. I wouldn't say we did great, but we did fine. I think like 40% of the events that I was in had some form of a Scotty. So it was very hard to kind of eclipse that, especially when he wins by four. But I had Xander, Cantlay, Siwoo, JT Poston, Ricky Fowler, and Eric Cole. Luckily for me, Ricky Fowler did a lot of that work in there, which I was really happy with. Cantlay also finished right around top 15, which was really good. Um, Siwoo Kim was right around 31, but there were so many ties between like 15 and 30 that I feel like a lot of it carried over. So I was very happy with the week. And then I'll just do the same thing for FanDuel just because I flipped Poston and Burns to make life easy. And Burns had another really good week, which was awesome to see coming into an event that I think he has a really good chance of winning here at the RBC Canadian.
Yeah. My DraftKings was pretty good. All the guys made the cut. I had Scotty. I also had like four guys finish between T20 and T40. Like Shane Lowry, Alex Noren, Bud Cauley, Ryan Gerard were all in that range. And then Andrew Novak was T51. So overall, it was fine. I think I barely won money because Scotty basically carried me and everybody else was about middle of the road. On FanDuel, I had Aaron Rai and Brian Harmon, who both missed the cut. And then again, a lot of the same other guys. Scotty won, Lowry 23rd, Andrew Novak T51, etc. So DraftKings was pretty good. FanDuel was pretty bad. Um, but it happens. That's how you looking.
We had an interesting week. I think we both kind of hit the tie scheme. We were actually on the golf course watching the final round compose, and it really was coming down to one shot, which was kind of wild for a lot of these picks. I went down 1.25 units, but if there was a swing on one shot for three guys, I'd be up 5 units, which is wild to say. Um, Xander, I had him on top 20, standalone and top 20 in round one. He missed top 20 by 2 shots and top 20 in round one by 1 shot. So there's a swing there that would have got me an additional like 1 point some other units. But I had Siwoo Kim over Daniel Berger. No offense to Liam, who did have something on Daniel Berger last week, or maybe not, but I know you've been high on him
Yeah, I think
regardless.
I think I had it on the Schwab.
The Schwab, yeah. I did not think that the eyeball test the week prior was good for Daniel Berger, so I picked him.
Yeah.
I picked Spieth over Finau. I thought Spieth, outside of just like two really bad iron shots, had a really good week. I was very happy to see that. And then I can't lay top 20. So I've done 1.25 units, which this has been a really weird week for me. Um, but overall, it puts me around the 10.97 unit mark on the year. Positive.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Terrible for me.
Well, yeah, not great for Jack, but pretty good for anybody else in the world. As far as bets go, I got screwed, respectfully. This was a tough week for me. I had Bud Cauley top 30 at plus 105. I think he finished what, T39. So he missed that out by like a shot or two. I had Shane Lowry over Ludwig Gobert. That looked great until Shane Lowry shot 7 over on Sunday. So that ended up being a loss. I had Ludwig Gobert to finish T20 or worse, and he shot, I think, 3 or 4 under on Sunday to finish T16. One shot worse, he finishes T21. So that was a loss. And then I had Denny McCarthy over Sungjae M. And that one was a loss as well. I think Sungjae was right on T30-ish and Denny was T55. Only win was Corey Connors over Victor Hovland, and it wasn't pretty or effective. So overall in the week, I am down 3.09 units, which is rough. So I'm now up 16.61 units on the year. So
Let's go.
yeah. Well, unfortunate break where with those top three, they could have all been positives and I would have been up a little, but it happens. Wild card, I threw you Siwoo without Scotty because I didn't realize you had him as a winner's pick. I think I gave you Xander or Cantlay instead of Siwoo when I should have.
You actually gave me Sep Straka, which was on the podcast, and I was listening to it back. I was like, oh, snap, he gave me Sep Straka who finished
Did
third.
I give you?
I'll
All
take
right, I'll
it.
give you Seb Straka. That's fine. Yeah, there you go. I like them, so I'm glad I did then. Um, But yeah, your wild card was I guess Siwoo without Scotty. I took Seb Straka top 10 at plus 275. That was a winner, by the way. I now have 12 wins, 18 losses. So that's as
Well,
far as my wild cards
for
go.
those who were following along at home, who I'm sure Liam did not say, but he actually didn't say this. I sent him in a screenshot on like 93 texts in a row with all my bets. I don't blame him for missing it. My wild card, one of course that hits was Speed's top 10. So thank you
Was
for
it?
missing
Oh,
him.
okay, yeah.
Yeah.
You had like 17,000 things going on there. I was trying to make sure I got all your bets in. I was like,
Of
let's hope
course.
I'm close. Um, yeah, I gave you like I think three other winners or two of the same winners and then one different one, but I knew they were all without Scotty. I'll tell you that much. So
Thank gosh.
yeah. So your winners were what? Can't I gave you Cantlay, Shoffley, Straka, or something like that, and then I think I maybe gave you Spawn as well. I don't know. I
Who knows? All
regardless,
I
your
know is
best one was
Straka was one of the
Straka, and it
ones
was
that
the
gave
one
me.
I
I was
gave
very
you.
happy.
What's up?
I was very happy once I heard Straka.
Okay, well that's fair. Jack got Straka. I had Lowry, Connors, and Novak. T23, T25, T51. So overall, decent enough week. It's all right. Jack's here this week, so he doesn't have to rely on me butchering it all. We are on to the RBC Canadian Open. This is going to be at TPC Toronto. This is the first time we are ever playing TPC Toronto. It's never been played on a PGA Tour event, I should say. I can't speak for junior golf or amateur stuff, any of the other ones. But this is first PGA Tour event here. When you look at the overview of the course, there's really not a lot of trouble off the tee. Between 290 and 310 yards off the tee, fairways are wide. There's minimal water, minimal bunkers. It's going to be pretty smooth sailing to get off the tee. Par threes look to be really the biggest challenge on the course. And there's not a lot of paths where guys are going to make a lot of bogeys here. It's kind of giving them that birdie fest vibe. Um, you can look at previous RBC Canadian Open data, but again, it will not equate to this course specifically. So you can sit there and be like, well, so and so plays good in Canada because they always finish top 10 in the RBC. And like that works, but it's a different course. So it's not really going to carry over the same way.
I will say really quick, just like what you had said, fairways are really wide, especially in a little bit longer of that landing zone. Accuracy isn't really going to be super important, but this is
Yeah.
actually going to play the 13th longest course on the PGA Tour since 2022. It's par 70. It's going to average around 7,400 yards, which equates to about 105.7 yards per hole, which is kind of, or excuse me, per par. So it's insane if you think you average it out that way. Your average par three will be 300 and like 15 yards. That's relative. Do the math on like obviously breaking it down. But
Yeah.
this is going to be a very long course. So like you may see some flyers in here that you may not have traditionally looked for at like a waste management or something of that nature.
Yes, absolutely. With that, let's dig into DraftKings pricing. Let's just loop the top three guys together. We have Rory McIlroy, Ludvig Gobert, and Corey Connors, ranging from 11-9 to 10-1. What are your thoughts on these three guys?
Well, I think this is a couple or interesting category per se.
Yeah,
I think this is going to be a very like I don't want to say like weird category, but I think we're either going to see one guy really dominate and one guy really struggle. But I think the guy that's really going to dominate, at least of the top three, is going to be Rory McIlroy, which I think is a very easy choice. He's been crushing it all of the course except for the PGA Championship. He played so much high level golf in a row, and not necessarily in a row of like he played 12 weeks in a row or in a row. He was playing at such a high level and he had so much in this world going around that I think at some point he put probably a little too much freedom in one case and a little bit too much pressure on himself to really struggle at the PGA. And I think this break is going to be really, really good for him. And I think he's going to come back. And 11,900 for who I say is the second best player in the world right now. You could make the argument for third if you're a Bryson fan. I understand the argument, but at least
yeah,
this year it's proven that it's Rory, is really right there. Ludvig Gobert finally had a really good showing at the Memorial, and he finished top 20. And I think these kind of going through in a very like scaled way, kind of that Tom Kim path from a little bit ago, where like Tom Kim came out of the gate firing. He won, I think, two events in his first like 50 starts or something like that, which was awesome. It was really great path. And then he just started to fall off randomly. Like no one could figure out why. And I think O'Bear went through that stretch a little bit. So like this course should fit his mold really, really well. So it's going to be interesting to see. I don't know how I truly feel about that, but Corey Connors has been the staple of consistency for a long time now. Granted, I don't love going to Canadians in the Canadian Open. It's like a horrible betting trend, especially for winners per se.
yeah.
But if there's a guy that I think could do, if I was going to bet top Canadian, Corey Connors would be my guy right off the bat. I'm not betting it, so don't take that as gambling advice. But he's been the model of consistency the entire year. So I think it's very fairly set in terms of the DraftKings measurements. So I really feel good about it.
Yeah, I'm a very high on Rory this week. Again, second, maybe third best player in the world. He's one who's played the RBC a bunch. I don't think he's ever finished worse than ninth. He's good at all Canadian courses. I don't really think it changes much. He'll fit this course really well. He's got the distance to basically mash it out there like 320 yards. So as long as he fits in your range, I think at 11,900, he's actually pretty fairly priced. I think he's a good choice to definitely start your lineups in. Corey Connors is an interesting one for sure. So when he's ranked in the top five in terms of pricing, his average finishing position that week in that tournament is 51st. So he generally doesn't play that well when he's that when he's highly respected. Now, of course, knowing that what I just said this week, he's going to go out and win. But he just generally doesn't play well. It's giving a trap. His around the green play has basically been horrible. He's lost around 6.5 strokes combined around the green in his last four starts total. So he's just scary to rely on, especially at his home country type of event. I feel like there's always been extra pressure, specifically on Corey, to perform well here. You mentioned Ludwig Gobert. He did well last week. That last week was really his first good finish, it feels like, since the Masters. Don't know if I want to rely on that either. I think maybe the most logical route in this range is you either go to Rory or maybe you just go straight down to the next range, and save yourself the extra $1,000 potentially off of Ludwig. So, with that, I think it's pretty clear we probably have what, Rory one. Do you say Ludwig or Corey two?
I think that, well, mentality tells me to go Corey here in the spot just from like consistency. But I think if
Yeah,
you're doing the ceiling game, it's perfectly rated. I think Ludwig has an opportunity to bounce back this week.
I agree. I agree. I think it's the same with me. This ceiling play puts Ludwig second. So cool. With that, let's get into the 9K range. We have Shane Lowry at 9,900 down to Luke Clanton at 9,000.
Okay, I got a couple thoughts in this category. So number one, Shane Lowry, I think is going to be awesome this week. I think he should be on a lot of people's radars if he's not already. Now, Shane is not the longest driver of the golf ball, and we kind of talked about right off the bat how important that is. But he leads the PGA Tour on approach from 200 to 225 yards, and is 15th on tour from 175 to 200. So right off the bat, he's going to be in a lot of these ranges. If he's doing that to the same capacity that 75 other golfers will be, he's going to be really well. He's also playing super well. He's super well rounded this year. He has not got a win, and this being a non-signature event field, I mean, there's going to be like 30 Canadians that should not be in this tournament. Respectfully, he should be able to, like, that's no, it's not me being rude. Like, good for them for being here, but
Yeah.
comparison to Shane Lowry, he should kill them. He's fifth on the PGA Tour in true strokes gained, and is second in strokes gained tee to green. And he gained 2 shots around true strokes with approach play last week at the Memorial, which is a really, really good sign here. So I think he's a really good target. I also, sorry, I have a bunch of thoughts on this one. I'm feeling like you. Taylor Pendrith is on here. Now, again, don't love it, but if I was going to bet on anything but Corey Connors, like a betting market for top Canadian without Corey Connors, you have to target Taylor Pendrith. This is like course fit 101. Length off the tee for him, he's a monster. So he finished fifth at the PGA, 12th at last week's Memorial. He was second and only to Scotty in terms of strokes gained tee to green, which is a really, really good sign. And he actually played multiple PGA Tour Canada events at this course. I think he finished runner-up in like 2018 or 19. I can't remember offhand.
Yeah.
But he's been the model of consistency at 9,600. I absolutely love it. Last guy I'll talk about, sorry, two more guys. Sam Burns. Sam
Yeah.
Burns has been on a freaking heater, and I know that's hard for you to admit because you have been clowning me for Sam Burns for multiple weeks, and not in the sense of like you're mad that he's doing well. It's just Sam Burns has been the model for the last like 5 years of like fifth, sixth, seventh, 112, 8th, 20th. This year he's been so consistent and has really mitigated his weaknesses. Now, I think what's really going to perform here this year, or this tournament rather, is the stellar putting that has catapulted him. This
Yeah.
event is going to be very soft. And what I mean by soft is his approach play, which has traditionally been his weakness, I think we both agree on that, is going to be slightly mitigated. So I think we're going to be able to see him attack some stuff. Last two thing for 2 seconds is obviously Keith Mitchell's a bomber, has had two okay showings in a row. He had 5 weeks of amazing golf. I think this could be a really good opportunity for him to come back. But I think in terms of a negative, I want to encourage everybody to pause on the Luke Clanton bandwagon. Now, I'm not saying he can't go out there and dominate because, like, metrics wise, great distance, like really good distance. Strokes gained off the tee is a crazy good measure for him. But if you take a look at his PGA Tour approach, he's missed 2 of his last 5 cuts. His putter in PGA Tour events has only gained in 2, which is really scary. And everywhere else, he's lost strokes outside of the Cognizant and Valspar, which have nothing to do with this, in four straight PGA Tour, third or three in a row with around the green, and has lost an average of 1.26 shots with the putter. So granted, in college, in the last like five events he's played, he's had two wins and like three other top 25 finishes or something of that nature where he's been really, really good.
Yep.
He's only gains positive strokes measure in two of them. That really stood out to me. And I think when you come into an event like this with a lot of like momentum, this is either going to be a really good or really bad week. And I think the only pause I have for him is his pricing is ridiculously high. If he was $1,000 cheaper, I'd be all over. I think that's very reasonable. But you're telling me a guy that's played like 8 professional events, whatnot, is going to be higher than the guy that won it last year, Mackenzie Hughes, who's been very consistent. Like that's just ridiculous to me.
I mean, in this field, Max Homa is 8,200. So if for me, Luke Clanton at 9,000, like I agree. I don't like seeing that number next to him, but like if you're telling me he's not the same price as Homa, like he's significantly better than Homa.
I would bet Homa
So
over Clanton right now.
that's an awful decision. I will do that head to head with you with Homa versus Clanton for sure. You can write that one down in the doc if you want. All right. I'll start off the range, kind of highlighting some of the guys you already talked about. Shane Lowry, he had a horrific Sunday. But if you take away that last week, he was actually really well. He was top 10 going into Sunday. He lost over five strokes gained tee to green last week. Basically made him drop down to like 25th or 29th or whatever he was. And he also, it's kind of an interesting thing with Shane Lowry because he's generally a really good putter, but he also hasn't gained more than a stroke with the putter since Bay Hill back in March. So for whatever reason, although he's always been a great putter, he just hasn't been as of recent. I still think Shane Lowry is going to be a good choice this week just because the rest of his game is so on par, and especially his irons right now, like Jack highlighted with his approach play. But I'm always a little weary of Lowry at that point. I will talk about Robert McIntyre. He's really coming into some good form. He gained in all strokes gained metrics in each of his last three starts outside of around the green play. He's also figured out his putter, and he's got no problem winning events at 25 under to contend in an event like this. He did win the Canadian Open last year at Hamilton Golf and Country Club, which again is not crazy, but good to know that he's not affected like wild amounts by saying that he's got to go to Canada for an event. There is Sam Burns, who Jack talked about. He actually gained on approach last week for the first time since the start of the new year, which is crazy. If he does that, he's going to finish top 10. He is lights out with the putter. He's gained in each of his last 12 starts. So if he's got a good ball striking week, I like him a lot this week. I could totally see him do well. And especially, again, Jack talks about him being streaky. So if he gained with approach last week, he's probably going to do it again this week, another couple weeks, and then fall back off. So I think Burnsy is a great option to go to. And then Luke Clanton, it is his official pro debut. It's not like we haven't seen him, though, for the last like 12 months. He's played plenty of golf. He's a pure masher of golf ball. When he gains on approach, he's gaining between 5 to 6 strokes gained in the majority of the tournaments that he gains. Obviously, he does have his putting woes where he struggles, but I think in an event like this, it's going to be one of those whoever is a hot putting week tournaments. So I like him as good of anybody in this like low 9K range. I mean, you can go to Keith Mitchell, but like people talk about Keith Mitchell having a bad putter as well or an inconsistent putter as well. So I think Luke Clanton and Keith Mitchell is all pretty close, all things considered. So I'm very comfortable going to Clanton if that is the choice. Cool. All right, on to the 8K range we go. We have Mackenzie Hughes at 8,900 down to Matt Wallace at 8,000.
Yeah, I think there's two guys that I think are very interesting plays. I will say Chris Goddard is probably going to be very like owned in a lot of high market values because he's a bomber and he's got like 4 good weeks of consistent golf. So I would be very like, if you've never heard of Chris Goddard before, he's a monster with the driver. So be cognizant of that. I will say Eric Cole's one of the guys that I've talked about for like the last 36 weeks consecutively, but he's been the model for consistency. he had like a good showing last week at the Memorial. He didn't make a ton of mistakes. I think this is going to be an event that I think he can really kind of catapult off that and being $8,100. Like I always say, 7,500 and up can is make the cut. I'm very happy. You take the bottom 40 guys in this field, he'll be able to beat them to the 95th percentile. So I feel really good about him making the cut and being able to catapult him. He's just such a consistent golfer. I could see a top 35 finish out of him. But I will say Max Homa is a very interesting play. Now, I understand Max Homa missed like 17 cuts in a row outside of like elevated events and whatnot. Max Homa has had a little bit of a resurgence in the last 5 weeks. 12th at the Masters, has made the cut and performed top 30 at Truist, and is currently inside of the marker to make the US Open on qualifying, which is, if you saw the field that he was in, it is not any stretch of the word a small dog field.
Yeah.
So like I think, and he's locked in. Like if you saw the video and the images from what he was at today, he was carrying his own bag. He told his caddy, "You're not coming. I'm doing this by myself." I think that really shows the mentality that he's really, really near and dear to. I think this is going to be an event. We always talk about Max Homa in terms of being a very underwhelming golfer in terms of like tee to green. Like he's like Patrick Cantlay light in terms of like the model of consistency.
Yeah.
He has gained distance in the last 7 starts and 8 of his last 10. So like you're talking about distance, we always dogged on him for that outside of like a random event that pop up. But now he's taking all those gaps. Like for 8 consecutive weeks, his best approach performance was negative 1.25. That has not happened in such a long time. He's been positive in a majority of his last events, and he's finally started gaining with the putter. So I think we're trending in the right direction for Homa. And if you're giving me 8,200 for a guy where I'm watching him live play in the most competitive, I will say the US Open qualifiers are as competitive, if not more competitive, than the actual event. Competitive and competition are two different things for anybody that doesn't know.
Yeah.
I would be dumb to not look into Max Homa, at least for like a low tier DFS lineup this week.
No, that's fair. Jack highlighted Eric Cole, so I won't get into it, but I think he's an interesting option this week. Again, doesn't have all the distance in the world, but has plenty good approach play. His putter's solid as well. I think he could easily make a cut and be solid here. I will mention Nick Taylor. The Canada narrative, Jack kind of highlighted earlier. Nobody likes to rely on guys that are Canadian here. But I think he's played this course probably more than anybody else in this field. He's highlighted that he's played this course maybe 12 to 15 times. He's got really good form in terms of approach play in each of his last 3 starts, where he's gained at least a stroke and a half on each of those. He's also gained with the putter in 4 of his last 5 starts. And then during this stretch, he's got 3 top 20 finishes. So I think Nick Taylor at 8,800 is a very good option to go to. I think he's a nice dark horse for top Canadian if you want to go down that route. I'm not telling you to. I'll tell you this, I don't have it as a bet. But it would be a fun one to kind of keep an eye on. And then normally I would go Alex Noren here. He is doing a lot better now that he's back from injury. I don't know if this is the course for him specifically. He does very good on positional based golf, and this is probably not the setup for him. But I understand if you like the name, and again, he's not that expensive. But I would probably go with Nick Taylor or Eric Cole first.
Yeah, Eric Cole also as well is currently inside of the cut line to probably go to a playoff to make the US Open. So him and Max Homa are both at -5 at the time of recording. So it's going to be an interesting dogfight on that one. So I think that builds huge momentum if he can get in and then come to an event like this. I think it's massive.
Yeah. If you're listening to this on Monday evening, happy longest day in golf. If you're listening to this Tuesday, then go back and like Google search just to see, what all happened in terms of on Monday, who's all in the US Open now, things like that. On to the 7K range, we are looking at Thomas Dietrich at 7,900. That's a cheap price for him. Down to Andrew Putnam, 7,000.
Yeah. So right off the bat, I will say John Kiefer is one of these guys that I keep seeing and seeing and seeing and seeing, and it makes no sense to me. I am another hater, not a hater, but like I don't understand it because Corn Ferry and PGA Tour, I cannot stress how different they are. It's like it's like going from double A baseball to the majors. Like it in grand retrospect, obviously it's a flow, but it's so different. He has been doing spectacular in the Corn Ferry, winning one. He has a runner up here and there, a couple other top fives and top 20s. And then he gets into the high tier event. He didn't even qualify for Q school. Everybody, he didn't qualify for Q school. So think about that. He did well at the Pro Cure, which has nothing to do with Canada. And he had one of the worst performances I've ever seen in my life at the PGA Championship. If you really watch his game, he grinded for 4 days. I don't understand the I understand the hype behind it, but like the backing of it, the gambling backing on him is monstrous. What I'm going to do is instead of highlighting that, I'm going to give you guys some information on where you can target. Number one is Ryan Fox. Ryan Fox was one of the guys that at one point snuck into like the top like 35 of the OWGR and was so consistent. And then now is like 75th because he just started missing a ton of cuts. Won at Myrtle Beach, 28th at the PGA and 20th at the Memorial. All events that are like truly drastic in terms of like styles. So if you're able to dominate in three different metrics, I really like it. We've always talked about Ryan Fox getting older and older and older in distance. He's still averaging about 8% marker distance over the field. So like I feel really good about Ryan Fox in the spot 7,700. If he can just make my cut, I'm spectacular. Rio Hizasune, I've talked about him way too much. Not going to spend too much time. He's way too consistent. I back him. Um, Another guy in here that I think can be a really good target is Nicholas Norgard. You might see him as Muller on it. He is one of the longest drivers of the golf ball in professional golf. He's like ranking, I want to say second in terms of PGA Tour distance measurement, just
He's
a little
first.
over what?
He's first.
It is one. When I was writing it down, it's just a little over 320. So it's going to give him a leg up on pretty much everybody in the field. His lack of accuracy traditionally in a lot of modern courses has been his downfall, which has been a lot of what architectures are doing to eliminate the distance. I'm not thinking he's going to come out here and win this event, so like be careful. But I think it's a really interesting spot for him to be in. I will also talk about Matthijs Schmid, who has in his last five events, he's got three top tens and then 112th. So he is, and again, once you get this category, it's going to obviously be skewed. But I think he's an interesting play to kind of take a look at all across the board. I will say Eric Van Rooyen is currently number one in terms of the U.S. Open qualifying bid. He is 5 shots clear of second, which is Bud Cauley. He's another interesting guy. This is going to be a wild pick, but much like Chris Scotterup, much like Nicholas Norgard, Alejandro Tosti's in this category, and he does miscut, miscut, miscut. Oh, this is a spot where I can swing the driver as hard as I can. 12, miscut 40. I don't know, like there's no science behind this, but if you're giving me a spot where this guy can go bang driver for 313 yards with 35 yards of rollout, there's a chance he's going to make the cut. So I'm taking it.
Yeah, that's fair. You've highlighted a few of the guys I was going to cover. You talked about Johnny Kiefer being a Corn Ferry guy and how that's double A, but you got to remember too, this is a Canadian Open where we're going to have guys from the Canadian Tour, which is basically like rookie ball.
Yeah, let me
Uh,
circle back on that. So I wasn't like dismissing his accomplishments,
yeah,
but
yeah,
like
yeah.
he's the seventh highest odds to win.
Oh yeah, that's insane.
No,
Yeah, I agree that that's a little crazy. I think he can make a cut this week.
sure.
I don't think he's going to do anything crazy beyond that. I think a T55 is very
That'd be very
uh
respectful.
yeah, very respectable. In his last 10 starts on the Korn Ferry Tour, he does have seven top 21 finishes. He missed the cut at the PGA Championship, but again, it's not the same style of course, not the same competition. Quail Hollow's a billion times harder than TPC Toronto, so I'm not worried about that. He's an interesting option at 7,800. Probably not the first choice I would go to, but an interesting one. You talked about Nicholas Norgard. Again, missed the cut on the number of PGA, but played well, all things considered. He's either first or second, depending on the metrics you look at for driving. It's either him or Rory, depending on what you want to feel. But other than the miscut on the number of PGA, he does have a T5 at Myrtle Beach, a T33 at Byron Nelson. Um, it gives Luke Clanton light for Nicholas Norgard for me this week. I think he's a good option. If you just want to be cheaper, but you still want to hit somebody that gets the ball really far out there, he's a good choice. I'll also talk about Matt Schmidt, long hitter, good with the irons. one of the few cheaper golfers that has the ability to get 225 under par. So he has the real ability to contend. I don't think he's going to really contend this week, but he has the ability to. And the last guy I'll mention is Jake Knapp. I don't normally go to him because he's very errant with his drives, but again, massively wide fairways, big landing areas. It's giving Mexico Open. It's giving Zurich Classic. Fit Jake Knapp's mold quite well. Yeah, I know that the tongue twister there. So this is less of a current golfing form play, as much of a course layout play. I think he has a fighting chance for a top 20, basically based on how his skill set fits in this course. Am I relying on him specifically? Probably not, but I think he's an interesting choice. I will also mention, I want to say Nico Ho or Rico Ho, he's in this range, right?
I don't know. I do not
Yeah,
like him.
7,300. He's made the cut in three of his last four starts. His only miscut was the PGA, but he did finish T7 at Myrtle Beach. Another masher of the golf ball. I think he has a chance to make the cut. And then Ricky Castillo is 7,200. He's made five straight cuts, four of them being T40 or better. He's gained on approach in six straight starts. Putters, pretty inconsistent, all things considered, but he's super cheap. At 7,200, you're just looking for a made cut out of him. So, sweet. All right. That makes sense. Do you have any thoughts on the 6K range, starting with Justin Lauer down to, oh gosh, who are some of these guys?
They're all the Canadian Tour guys. It's like
Yeah,
sponsors and whatnot.
Matthew Scooby. I don't know if that's actually his last name, but
Um,
Scobie.
yeah, there's one guy I like am okay with, and then a couple like I'll talk about. One is Antoine Rosner.
Yeah.
He is one of those guys that's been very quiet the entire year, has just been a model of consistency. The only PGA Tour event he's missed was the Amex, where it's, obviously that's Pebble, so it's going to be a really difficult course and has nothing to do with Canada. So I'm okay with that. He lost, 2.21 shots around the green and 1.58 putting. He's been nowhere close to that all across the board. He is 34th at Myrtle Beach, 13th at Byron, 31 at Zurich, 33 at Valero. Just been really across the board, finished fourth in the Qatar Masters, so he knows how to play and knows how to play really well. Distance measurements are right around 8.5 to 9%. Over tour average, has gained strokes majority of his rounds in the PGA Tour this year, which has been really good, and his strength has been approached. So if you're looking for a guy, like if you go, hey, I want Rory and I want Corey Connors, he's a guy you could fill in the back of your lineup. I will also just highlight really quickly three names. I do not recommend putting them in your lineup, but I would say number one, Brent Snedeker. Brent Snedeker is a wild draw. I know it, but he just finished seventh at the Memorial and looks like he's going to qualify from the PGA Tour in terms of the US Open quals. So that's big momentum to go on. Luke List is also one of those guys that just randomly bombs the ball. So like you can kind of take that who did I say? Toasty route if you want him. And I will also say David Ford, who's one of the best college golfers I have ever seen in my life, just got his PGA card, and is going to be in this field. He sucked last time he was in the PGA Tour. He is a way better golfer, respectfully, way better golfer than Luke Clanton. I know that's a wild take because everybody watches him on like Good and has seen him play success on a lot of these PGA Tour courses. You put David Ford on TPC Deer Run. I think he's doing the same thing that Luke Clanton is, respectfully. And I think his college career showed that. David Ford has won I'd say like four of his last five non-PGA Tour starts, which is something
He's 6,600. Do you like him this week?
I'm okay with him. Like I'm not picking him to win by any stretch of the means, but going
Yeah.
from Charles Schwab, where he missed the cut, losing basically everywhere but off the tee, to like this, and this is gonna be a little more comfortable.
Yeah.
And then I hope that Nate Lashley misses the cut.
Shocker. No, I did forget Carl Phillips. I thought he was a 6K. I think he's 7,000 on the dot. He's a risky play, but he finished T11 last week at the Charles Schwab, and he gained in every strokes gain metric across the bag. I think he's a decent option for a made cut here. I wouldn't want to rely on him. I think there's better options, especially if you can spend the extra $100 and get to Ricky Castillo. 6K range, I don't like a lot of the options here. The only guy I have is Nick Dunlap, and this is more of a field play based on the fact that Nick Dunlap plays in a lot tougher tournaments than this. He is playing on the Memorial, PGA Championship, RBC Heritage, the Masters, the Players, the API, the Genesis, the Phoenix Open. I mean, he's playing in big, big tournaments. So I think that he can do better in this relatively weak field, to the point of at least a mid cut. He might still finish T65 at the end of it all because he's going to shoot 12 over on the weekend, but he's playing on the weekend. And at 6,600, that's a pretty good choice to get to. Um, as Jack mentioned, he mentioned, I want to say, oh, you said his first name, but I just know him as Ford. I want to say David.
David Ford. He's a
Yeah.
lefty. You should know him.
Well, I know as a lefty, I should, but I always just see the last name Ford, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's that college kid. But I think Dunlap or Ford at 6,600 makes a lot of sense there. So, all right, on to DFS. What's your DraftKings lineup looking like this week?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a very interesting number one pick. I don't even think we talked about him, which is on me. Harry Hall at 9,200. I think this could be an event that he kind of capitalizes on with a weaker field, and I think his short game is just miraculous. Keith Mitchell, 9,100. I have Sam Burns, 9,300. Sorry, out of order. Ryan Fox, 7,700. Mattai Schmid, 7,500. And Alejandro Tosti, 7,100.
We do have the same person in there, or one of the same people in here. For my DraftKings lineup, I went top heavy. I got Rory McIlroy at 11,900. Then I got Luke Clanton at 9,000. I got Johnny Kiefer at 7,800. Oh yeah, we're gonna try it out. At least in DF, at least in DraftKings. We have Matt Ty Schmidt at 7,500. Ricky Castillo at 7,200. And I mean, do I do Clanton or do I do David Ford at 6,600? I've been going back and forth on it all day, Jack.
Clanton or Ford?
Dunlap or Ford.
You have Dunlap? Oh my God, get him on.
All right, so
I can
we'll
beat
do
Nick
we'll
Dunlap
do David
right-handed
Ford.
right now.
We'll do David Ford.
Oh my gosh,
All right, David Ford at 6,600, just a piece, Jack.
Nick
FanDuel.
Dunlap has not even found the logo on his golf ball in 8 consecutive weeks.
All right, on to your FanDuel. What you got?
Not Nick Dunlap. I Sam Burns 11,700, Taylor Pendrith 11,300, Keith Mitchell at 11,000, Foxy at 9,400, Alejandro Tosti at 8,300, and I did Antoine Rosner at 8,300 alike. I'm going the bomber lineup on this one.
That's fair. For my FanDuel, I got Rory McIlroy at 13,000, Luke Clanton at 11,200, Jake Knapp 10,100, Matt Ty Schmidt at 9,200, Ricky Castillo at 8,800, and then David Ford.
Good. He is one of the best players I've ever seen with my eyes
Yeah,
at that
so
age. It's ridiculous.
that's fair. That is fair. All right, on to bets. What you got for bets this week? No,
I
I
did
only see
five this week.
five.
I kept it short and sweet. There's not a lot of history here. The event is scattered all across the board. You got like second the OWGR, like ninth, and then like 42nd. So like I'm not really high on anything. So number one, Keith Mitchell and Sam Burns to both make the cut is minus 120. I think Sam Burns has a really good chance to win it this week, and Keith Mitchell should be able to make a cut just because he's a bomber. Um, that's at minus 120. I have Taylor Pendrith top 40 at minus 200. Yes, I realize that's such a baby line, but I am willing to sacrifice it to make half a unit back. That's profit, ladies and gentlemen. I have Sam Burns top 40 minus 160. Am I stupid with that? Am I stupid? I think he has a chance to win. So top 40, I love that at minus 160. I have Keith Mitchell top 40 at minus 143. And I have Ryan Fox at top 40 at plus 110. So I like the guys that I kind of talked about previously. I think all of them have a really good shot to hit this line. I really like those bets.
No, that's fair. For my bets, I have five as well, and I'm looking through them all, and I still like them all. Um, First bet is going to be Rory top 20 in round one. That is actually plus 110. My second one is Sung J M over Benny On and Tom Kim. Tom Kim hasn't sniffed a cut in like 8 starts. So you're giving me plus 105 for Sung J M over Benny On. I'm here for it. And then I have Mattai Schmidt over Yannick Paul and Thomas Rosenmuller or Muller, probably known.
Rosenmuller.
Euler? Okay. That's minus 105. Jack and I both talked on how we like Matt Schmidt. I have Shane Lowry over Corey Connors at plus 110, which that one's a little bit more iffy. But again, I'm worried about Corey Connors and his home country living up to expectations. And then I have Luke Clanton over Thorbjorn Olesen at minus 110. I feel good about that. Now, if it was Luke Clanton versus Sam Burns, I would feel less good about that. But I feel pretty good about Thorbjorn Olesen, him beating Thorbjorn. So, all right, on to wild cards. What you got for a wild card this week, Jack?
I got Trace Leches, three, because I couldn't narrow it down, which is disgusting. So I'm probably going to go down, whatever. I'm going to put a little bit on this anyway. Number
Okay.
one, Sam Burns, top 10 is plus 333. Sam Burns has been crushing it out of the park over the last little bit of time, has been right around the 13th, 14th, like 15th mark for like the last 6 or 8 weeks. Outside of, I think he finished like 30th at the truest. In this type of event, the field size is going to be a little bit weaker. I talked about the greens being a little bit softer. He's been crushing it. I think this is an event that he could sniff leaderboard come Sunday. So if you're giving me a little over 3-1 odds for a top 10 in ties, I'm taking it. Um, I'm also taking Shane Lowry. Top 10 is plus 275. He has had two okay weeks, but prior to that, he's got a runner-up finish, 18th, 8th, 7th, 11th, another runner-up, and some scattered like 20th places. This is another event that I think he can really capitalize with his irons, really get some putts to roll. I think that top 10 with almost 3-1 odds is really in play. And then I have Nicholas Norgard at top 20 is plus 300. I actually envision those odds getting worse, meaning probably go to like plus 350 by the come Thursday morning. So if you're thinking about betting it, I would probably even put caution to the wind because not a lot of people know where he is. So the market's going to decrease. He is a bomber of the golf ball. If he can get any style of approach play where he's hitting like 70% green in regulation, this guy has an ample opportunity to hit top 20, and you're giving me a 3-1 odds on that. So
Yeah. No, I like Norgard in the wild card. I thought about throwing him in. I threw Nick Taylor to finish top 20 at plus 200. I want to say those odds have already changed down to probably like closer to 180. So hopefully you get it in while you can before the odds change too much. But I like the idea of Nick Taylor popping off in an event like this to where he's played this course a bunch. So, all right, on to winners. They're all without Rory. I know
yeah,
we
I
we
see you
we're
copied my frickin' thing, betting without Rory.
I mean, it's the good call. It's a good call to do considering he's such a heavy favorite in this field. I think he was what, like 3.5 to 1 to win. So I'm like, yeah, it makes sense too.
Yeah, he was on average about four and a quarter to win, and then you have like Corey Connors to 17-1 after that. So I'm betting without Rory because I think he can pop off and do it. But I got Taylor Pendrith 18-1 without Rory. I got Keith Mitchell 30-1 without Rory, and I got Ryan Fox 56-1 without Rory. I also, just for the record, think that Shane Lowry has an ample opportunity to do that, but I did not capitalize on that.
That's fair. For my winners, I did steal one of Jack's guys that he was probably going to pick here. I took Sam Burns at 25 to 1, who I think Jack probably would have had in there if I didn't have him. Again, that's without Rory. I have Luke Clanton at 25 to 1, who Jack probably didn't want anything to do with. And then I have Jake Knapp at 60 to 1, again, also without Rory. So it's going to be an interesting week. If Rory wins, then we got to figure out who finishes second because we could have a fun one in terms of the six guys that we picked. I think any of the six of them could theoretically finish second place behind Rory.
And
All
just for
right.
the record, just for anybody that doesn't like understand the betting without Rory market, there's two things. One, like what Liam said, basically if Rory McIlroy wins, if one of our guys finishes second place, we win that money as a winner's pick. It's an interesting, we've never done it before. Like last week we did it without Scotty Scheffler, who ended up winning. And if we had picked the guy in second place, we would have won money. So there's that, number one. But number two, it also makes gambling, if you're betting winners, which I will state on the record, do not bet winners. It's not relatively like inducive of winning money over time. And luckily we've picked, I want to say 6 or 7 winners on the year. So we've been profitable, but like historically it's not. Rory McIlroy is basically around 4-1 to win on most major books. If you bet Rory, and three other guys, let's say you put a unit, a unit, a unit, a unit. So you put 4 units in. If Rory McIlroy wins, you're net even.
Yeah.
So like you have to be very careful with that. So with this, it just maximizes not only our safety in terms of pocketing money, but also in terms of winning money.
The other idea is if you don't want to do the betting without Rory, you just go top five each way, which I think is probably the smarter method in terms of a standard winners pick. But again, we're trying to get you guys true winners picks as opposed to kind of beating around the bush. So with that, that is the RBC Canadian. Obviously, next week is going to be the U.S. Open. That is going to be a really fun event as far as DFS and the podcast goes. I'm sure Jack will be knuckle deep in all of the golf information of the world. But he's going to be very excited for that one. So with that, we will leave you to it. Safe betting. We will see you next week for the U.S. Open. Doses.